Lisboa basked in the late afternoon sun. Tram 28 squealed along the narrow curves of Alfama, rattling past the faded yellow walls and laundry dancing in the breeze. High above the tiled rooftops, in a quieter, windier part of the city, stood the Escola de Santa Clara. It was there that 12-year-old Tiago Oliveira tried his best not to be noticed. Tiago was tall, too tall for his age. His long arms hung awkwardly at his sides, and his legs seemed unsure whether they belonged to a boy or a young stork. He was quiet, painfully shy, and often lost in thought, eyes tracing the horizon of the Tagus River during recess. He didn't laugh loudly like the others. He didn't run or fight or boast. He simply existed. It wasn't always like that. Tiago used to be lively, even joyful, when he was younger. But things started to change last year when a boy named Duarte transferred from Porto. Duarte was clever and popular, always with something sharp to say and a cruel smile to follow. It only took him a week to notice Tiago's height. "Oh, post," he called out one day in the schoolyard. The nickname stuck instantly. The other boys laughed. The girls whispered. Tiago froze. Something inside him shifted that day, like a heavy door quietly closing. From then on, he became post. Not Tiago. Not a person. Just an object. A thing to point at and mock. Every time he passed by the lockers or walked into the canteen, someone would lean forward and say it under their breath. Sometimes louder. Sometimes even the teachers chuckled. Tiago stopped speaking in class. He started coming to school late, leaving early. At home, he claimed he had headaches. He avoided mirrors. His once rich drawings of the city and sea disappeared from his notebooks. But there was one place Tiago still felt almost normal, the rooftop of the school's old gymnasium. It was off limits, but the rusty fire stairs at the back were easy enough to climb. Up there, Lisboa seemed smaller, softer. From that height, he could pretend the world was kind. One afternoon, while sitting cross-legged and sketching clouds, Tiago heard footsteps behind him. He turned sharply. There, holding her shoes in one hand and a half-eaten sandwich in the other, was a girl from his year, Inés Ferreira. She was one of the quiet ones too, but with a different kind of silence. A silence that watched, that listened. "You always hide up here?" she asked, biting into her sandwich. Her voice was calm, like the river. Tiago nodded, unsure what to say. Inés looked at his sketchbook. "That cloud looks like a cat. Or a dragon. I haven't decided yet." He managed a small smile. It felt strange on his face. "I think it's a ship," he replied softly. Inés sat beside him, shoes off, crumbs falling between the roof tiles. And for the first time in many months, Tiago didn't feel like a nickname. He felt seen. The next day, Tiago wasn't sure what to expect. He didn't mention the rooftop moment to anyone. Part of him thought maybe it hadn't even happened. Maybe Inés was a passing thought, a kindness he had imagined. But when lunch came, and he sat alone at his usual corner of the courtyard, he saw her walking toward him.
She didn't ask to sit.
She just did. She handed him half a pastel de nata and nodded at his sketchbook again. "Any new dragons today?" Tiago blinked. Not yet. From that afternoon, something began to shift. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But like a hairline crack in a wall that begins to widen with time. Inés kept coming back. Not every day, but often enough that Tiago noticed the absence when she wasn't there. She never asked about the nickname. Never brought up Duarte. She spoke about the old music her grandfather played on vinyl, about her cat that hated everyone but her, about the books she kept reading but never finishing. Sometimes, she just sat in silence with him, looking over the rooftops. Then one Thursday, as the school bell rang and Tiago started to climb down from the gym rooftop, he heard a voice below. Sharp, echoing.
"Oi.
Post. Lost up there again."
Duarte."
He was leaning against the back fence, chewing gum, holding court as usual. A group of boys snickered behind him. Tiago froze halfway down the stairs. For the first time, he didn't look away. He didn't laugh it off either. Instead, he asked calmly, "Why does that name make you feel powerful?" The laughter paused. Briefly, Duarte squinted. What? Tiago stepped onto the gravel, eyes level. You keep using it. Like it makes you stronger. Duarte scoffed and turned away, but the boys behind him had gone quiet. Ines appeared beside Tiago a few moments later. She said nothing, but her presence alone made the gravel under his shoes feel firmer. That night, Tiago stayed up late, sketching. Not clouds. Not buildings. But people. People with eyes like hers. People who noticed. The school week rolled on, and Tiago noticed something strange. The whispers didn't sting as much. The stares were still there, but they felt duller, like echoes of something that used to hurt more. Even Duarte had grown quieter, offering the nickname only in passing, as if trying it out again, uncertain of its power now. Tiago wasn't healed. Not yet. But something had changed. On Monday morning, Ines handed him a folded piece of paper. Don't open it until you're alone, she said with a smirk. Up on the rooftop during break, Tiago unfolded it. It was a list. Handwritten. Titled, The Cruelest Nicknames I've Ever Heard. It was long. Heartbreaking. Each line told a story. Tiago read. Skeleton. For a girl who couldn't gain weight. Glue boy. For a kid who cried when his parents divorced. No socks. For a boy who couldn't afford proper shoes. At the end, a note. You're not alone. We've all been something. Tiago stared at the final line for a long time. It was more than just a list. It was a map of hidden pain, a quiet rebellion against cruelty. The idea came unexpectedly. What if we made it a real thing? Ines said one day. Not just a list, but something people can add to.
Share.
See that they're not the only ones. Tiago hesitated. People don't talk about this. Exactly, she replied. So they did it. A blank notebook, left quietly in the school library. On the inside cover, in careful handwriting, write the names they gave you. Then write who you really are. It started slowly. 1 entry. Then 2. By the end of the week, there were 16. Some were silly. Some were devastating. Some were poems. Others just one shaky word. But the notebook kept growing. One morning, Tiago found something else. Someone had drawn him, tall, standing strong, with a real tree trunk behind him, not a lamppost. The caption underneath. Not a pole, a lighthouse. The whispers changed. They weren't gone, but they had different tones now, confused, curious, even afraid. Duarte noticed. He tried pushing back. You think this makes you brave? Hiding behind some sappy notebook. Tiago stood in the corridor, his back straight. I'm not hiding. You just don't know how to stand still without hurting someone. For once, Duarte had no answer. Later that day, a quiet boy from year 7 approached Tiago. He didn't say much, just handed him a folded paper. Inside was a sketch of a broken puppet with its strings cut, standing tall. Underneath, thank you. It was bound to happen. On a rainy Tuesday morning, the notebook disappeared.
Gone.
Not in the library. Not in Lost and Found. No teacher had seen it. A single page was found later, ripped, trampled, wet from the rain. The page with Tiago's first entry. Panic gripped his chest. Not anger. Not sadness. Just a cold emptiness, like someone had stolen a piece of him. Ines didn't say much. She sat next to him under the old stone arch behind the school, the one no one ever noticed. She handed him a new notebook. This time, she whispered, we won't leave it behind. What they didn't expect was how others reacted. A girl named Leonore brought back photocopies. She had secretly scanned pages from the old notebook, just in case. A group of Year 10 students offered to paint a mural on the courtyard wall, inspired by the entries. The school's art teacher got involved. If your stories are being destroyed, then maybe it's time we give them walls. And so, the wall near the lunch hall, usually covered in graffiti and peeling paint, was transformed. Each square became a memory, a truth. And beneath it, in bold letters, not just names. Duarte didn't take it well. The attention, the change, the quiet slipping of power from his hands. He tried harder. Louder insults. Smirks turned into sneers. Until the day he was called into the headmaster's office. Tiago hadn't reported him. Someone else had. Multiple students, actually. Rumors swirled that he cried. He didn't show up for 2 days. When he returned, he was quiet.
Pale.
Alone. Tiago watched him. And for the first time, he felt something strange. Not triumph. Not pity. Something heavier. He remembered Inez's words. We've all been something. Even bullies. The mural was finished. There would be a small ceremony the next morning, just the students and a few teachers. Nothing grand. Just names and stories and silence. Tiago couldn't sleep. He sat by his bedroom window, the city lights below like fireflies caught in jars. His sketchbook lay open on his lap. He drew a figure, a tall one, standing not on the rooftop, but on the ground this time, surrounded by others. Not leading. Just not alone. For the first time in a year, he didn't feel afraid of tomorrow. He felt ready. They gathered in the courtyard under a gray morning sky. Inez stood beside him, hands in her coat pockets. The wall behind them shimmered with rain-soaked color, each story glinting like a secret finally set free. The headmaster spoke briefly, but most of the time was left for quiet reading. Students stood in groups, pointing to entries. Some laughed softly. Some wiped their eyes. Some simply stood and stared. And then someone began to clap. Just one person. Then two. Then everyone. Tiago didn't move. He didn't bow. He just breathed. In that moment he understood. He had become what someone once called him. Not a pole, not a joke, but a lighthouse.